Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into something quite specific. It's an excerpt from a Christian devotional.
That's right. It's called Rhapsody of Realities by Pastor Chris. And we're looking at just one entry, November 5th, focusing on soul development.
Soul development. Okay. And right off the bat, this source makes a a really big claim, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It defines the work of a Christian, specifically someone they call a soul winner, as doing the greatest, most important work in the world. That's quite a statement.
The greatest work. And it's not presented casually either. There's this story in the text,
Yeah.
right, about being asked, what job do you do?
Yeah, years ago, the author says they were asked that. And the answer wasn't, pastor or something typical. It was, I'm into soul development.
Wow. Just like that. Soul development.
Exactly. That phrase is really the key, I think. It kind of bypasses traditional religious titles and uses this, almost professional language. Development.
So our goal today, then, is to unpack that. What does the source mean by soul development?
Precisely. We need to look at their definition, the scriptural backing they provide, and the practical sort of instructions they give. It feels less like abstract theology and more like a job description.
Okay, let's start with that definition then. If this is the greatest job, what exactly does the job entail according to this text?
Well, they give a pretty clear two-part definition. Soul development is, first, turning men from darkness to light.
Okay, the conversion aspect.
Right.
All right.
And second, training them in righteousness.
So there's turning and training. That seems like a crucial distinction.
It really is. It implies it's not just about, getting someone to make an initial decision for faith. That's the turning.
The soul-winning part.
Exactly. But then comes the training, the development. That sounds like a much longer-term project. Discipleship, essentially.
So it's defining the work as this continuous process, almost like a pipeline.
Yeah, a development pipeline is a good way to put it. It's not a single event. It's ongoing. Which also means the job isn't really done until that person is fully trained or mature in their faith.
And if it's framed as a job, a pipeline, the source is quite insistent on how Christians should view this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something about not letting people diminish it.
Very insistent. It explicitly says, never let anyone talk you down or suggest you're without a job.
So you own this as your profession.
Yes. It mandates treating this spiritual work as a genuine professional calling. It's not a hobby. It's your primary role.
That use of corporate-sounding language, job, development, calling, it really shifts the perspective, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It takes it out of the purely voluntary or, spiritual life category and puts it right into the professional sphere. Like, it's your career.
Okay, so if it's the greatest job, there must be some significant justification or reward mentioned. Where does the text go from there?
It moves straight into the reward aspect, pulling from Scripture, specifically from the prophet Daniel in the Old Testament.
Daniel. Okay, what's the connection?
It cites Daniel 12, verse 3. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever.
Turn many to righteousness. That links directly back to the definition.
Exactly. The reward for doing this soul development work is, eternal radiance, shining like stars forever.
Shining like stars. That's a powerful image. But how does doing this daily work, this development, actually lead to that kind of outcome? Does the source explain the mechanics of it?
It does, using a really interesting analogy. It asks, why do soul winners shine like this?
And the answer is?
The answer is because the souls they win and develop become trees of righteousness.
Trees of righteousness. Okay, so the person being developed becomes something, living, growing, permanent.
That's the idea. You're not just fixing something broken, you're planting something that grows. It connects the development idea to something organic and lasting. Divine horticulture, as you put it earlier. That's a great way to think about it.
And does it say why these souls become trees? What's the purpose of these trees?
Yes. It immediately backs that up with another scripture, this time from Isaiah 61, verse 3. These developed souls, these trees of righteousness, are described as the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified.
The planting of the Lord. So God is involved in the planting.
And the ultimate purpose is God's glory. The product of this development work is intended to bring honor back to God.
The text seems to make a point about these specific trees too, right? Compared to other kinds of trees.
It does. It distinguishes between, all kinds of trees and these particular trees of righteousness. The ones raised by soul winners are special because they are seen as directly planted by the Lord, even though it's through the believer's work.
So that makes the work divine, as the source calls it. You're participating in God's own planting activity.
Precisely. You're a co-worker with God in this grand project of glorification. And this accumulation of claims, greatest job, eternal star-like reward, planting divine trees, it leads the devotional to its peak assertion about this work.
Which is?
It calls the work so glorious and then states, quite plainly, there is no higher calling.
No higher calling. That's
Yes.
absolutely. It puts this specific activity above literally everything else a person could possibly do.
Everything. Regardless of your profession or impact in the world, scientist, leader, artist, whatever this source ranks soul development as number one.
Period. That's a challenging hierarchy. How does it justify placing it so definitively at the very top?
It justifies it by connecting it directly to God's own priorities. The text makes the bold claim that God's number one job is soul winning.
Wait, God's a number one job. That sounds incredibly focused. How can the source possibly argue that God's primary role, his main job, is just soul winning?
The argument hinges on John 3.16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son.
Okay, the classic verse.
Right. The source interprets God giving his best, his son, as the ultimate proof of his priorities. The logic is he made the biggest possible investment, giving his son specifically to win the whole world.
So the magnitude of the sacrifice proves the priority of the mission.
That's the interpretation presented.
Yeah.
Because God gave his absolute best for this, it must be his highest priority, and therefore it should be the believer's highest priority too.
Okay, I see the line of reasoning there. So if this is God's top priority and therefore our top priority, what does that mean for the person reading this? What's the practical takeaway, the daily mandate?
The mandate is really about continuous active engagement. It's not passive. The text says you should always think and strategize with the Spirit on what more you can do with regard to soul winning.
Think and strategize. That sounds like more than just, praying about it. It sounds like active planning.
Exactly. It implies a level of mental effort and strategic thinking, almost like you'd apply to a business objective or a complex project. You're expected to constantly be thinking, what's the next step? How can I be more effective? How can I optimize this?
So it's not just a job. It's a job requiring ongoing strategy and innovation.
Yes. Proactive, continuous improvement aimed at maximizing the soul development outcome.
And how does this constant strategic focus relate to, everything else in a person's life?
Yeah.
Their career, their talents.
That's where it culminates. The source pulls it all together by stating that everything else you do, it mentions your excellence, ideas, and innovations. All of it should revolve around this one thing, soul development.
Wow. So nothing is separate. Your skills, your successes, your breakthroughs, they aren't valuable in themselves.
According to this text, their value comes from how they serve this primary mission. If you're a brilliant engineer, that brilliance is a resource for soul development. If you're a creative artist, your art should somehow connect back to this purpose.
It basically repurposes all secular achievement. It dissolves the line between the sacred and the secular aspects of life.
Completely. It provides a single lens through which everything else is viewed and valued. And the source leaves no room for doubt about this being the reader's core identity. It ends very clearly. This is your calling, your purpose, and your ministry.
Calling, purpose, and ministry, all wrapped up in this one concept.
It defines your entire reason for being in terms of this strategic developmental role.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap the main thrust of this devotional for you listening. We've seen it define Christian work, specifically soul winning and discipleship, as a professional level job, soul development.
Yeah, the greatest job, backed by promises of shining like stars eternally, achieved by planting these trees of righteousness.
And it justifies this supreme ranking by claiming it's God's own number one job, evidenced by the sacrifice of Christ.
Which then leads to a mandate for constant strategic thinking and planning, making soul development the central hub around which all other aspects of life, your skills, ideas, successes must revolve.
Right. It's presented as your ultimate calling, purpose, and ministry.
A very focused perspective.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to maybe mull over. If this source is correct, and all excellence, all ideas, all innovation must ultimately serve this single mission of soul development, how does that fundamentally change how we value traditional success? Does achieving great things in science, art, or business lose its intrinsic worth if it's not harnessed for this specific spiritual purpose? Or does it simply mean success becomes a tool, a resource for a higher goal? Something to think about that potential reordering of what matters most.
For more information on how you can grow spiritually using Rhapsody of Realities, please visit our website, www.rhapsodyofrealities.org, or you can also visit rin.rhapsodyofrealities.org/salvation. Thank you.